see me back there? How about now? Okay. We don't have the best AV guys in the business for nothing. Anyways, welcome everybody. For those of you, I'm sure everyone's already checked out my site ahead of time. That's what people do for speakers. We're wondering, why in the world am I holding this brick? What's with the brick is your real question. Let me ask you a question. What would you do with this brick?
I would build a patio.
Okay.
I'd build a sidewalk.
How about you?
I'd build a whole new house if I had to. I'll start with one brick.
Fantastic. 3 answers. I'm sure we can get a few more if we go ahead and poll everybody else here in the audience. What if I told you can actually get 50 different ideas of what to do with this brick in the next 5 minutes? You'd wonder how that'd be possible. And the reason why it's possible is because right now we're in a pattern thought process. It's potentially and possibly perturbing even that we're stuck in this pattern thought. So how do we exactly break out of it? Well, before we answer that question, we first have to figure out how did we end up over here to begin with. You know, it really wasn't our fault. I mean, it started really as little kids. We've always been indoctrinated to be thinking in patterns. Think of a baby's toy, if you will. You have the rings, and they all have to fit in a sequential order, or a little box with the different shapes. The shapes have to go in a particular order. But even more than that, how about Sesame Street? Which one of these doesn't belong? Which one of these is not like the other? From the very beginning, it's all about pattern thought. So to break out of this pattern thought, we really have to understand our subconscious. Our subconscious really is a filter. It actually filters out anything that doesn't fit into the tried and true. And because it doesn't fit in, things don't fit into that tried and true, we don't actually end up thinking about it. It's almost as if we have our own little stupid barrier. We're afraid to think anything outside that stupid barrier. We don't want to look stupid. Who wants to actually go ahead and look stupid? So now how do we get past that stupid barrier? We get past the stupid barrier by almost as simplistic. There are no stupid ideas. We've all heard that before. Well, maybe there are stupid ideas, but we have to tell our brain there aren't any stupid ideas. Every idea is a good idea. And the way we can get to that is, again, going back to this brick. Let's engage our 5 senses. So you start with sight. Well, right now you see a rust-colored, brick-colored brick. But what if this brick were different colors? What if this were a blue brick or a green brick? What if this brick were a different shape? Let's say a triangle, maybe even a circle. Ideas over there. What about sound? If I drop this, well, I think the people on the stage would have a problem with me if I dropped this brick on the stage. But what kind of sound would that actually make? What if I banged it against something else? That might make a different sound. Is the sound evocative of something? What about smell? You know, certainly masonry has some sort of a smell to it, and that's pretty distinctive of what it is. But let's say this brick weren't a masonry brick. Let's say this were a foam brick. Certainly foam and plastic smells like something. You know, the other thing is what about touch? You know, this has a particular texture to it. What about other things that have that texture? What does that actually remind us of? And finally, the 5th sense, of course, we'd have a lot harder time, of course, dentists might appreciate it, is taste. You want to go in and chomp on this thing, well, I'm not quite sure that'd be a great idea. But what if this brick were actually a brick of chocolate or a brick of cheese? What do those tastes remind us of? You know, finally, we have an imagination. What could this actually really be? When we're thinking about creative thought, it's almost like a tree. A tree starts with our basic idea, our basic problem that we're trying to solve, and then you have almost infinite branches, twigs, leaves. How many leaves are on a tree? Have you ever stopped to count? Yeah, it probably would take you a while. Yeah, it's probably a finite number, but it's a large number. So again, how are we going to actually get past this? What we really have to go ahead and do with our creative thought is to go ahead and, if we're by ourselves, we need to fool our subconscious, really. There are no stupid ideas. Every idea is a great idea. If we're in a meeting, we're here in a company, we're talking about corporate profitability and corporate creativity, what we really need to do is we actually need to get past a bias. We need to find a way. There are no stupid ideas. We're not ruling anything out. This idea is doable, it's attainable, it's economical, and most importantly, it's profitable. Speaking about generating ideas, the single biggest barrier to generating ideas is judging them. We tend to actually judge ideas really quickly, both subconsciously and actually consciously. For example, let's say we're in a meeting And in the meeting, we're trying to figure out how can we best combat absenteeism. So let's say I come up with an idea, I raise my hand in the back. My idea is throw a cream pie in their face. What's your reaction?
No.
Your reaction?
Do that. It's gonna make a mess.
I'm gonna have to throw a penalty flag. That is an illegal motion. What have you done? You've just judged. Now, what about anybody else in that room? Anybody else in that room, you just heard their idea get shot down. How likely is it that they're now gonna volunteer another idea? They just saw their buddy go down in flames. I mean, it's terrible. What about all the rest of the people that have observed that? Well, now all these people might have potential ideas. These ideas are now unrealized, uncommunicated, unspoken. What's the value of those ideas? Can we even put a value on those ideas? You know, the fact of the matter is we actually have to be able to get past that judging, whether we're doing it subconsciously or we're actually doing it consciously. The real problem is bias. Normally when we hear bias, we think of things that might be unethical, illegal. We talk about different groups, perhaps, different groups of people. I'm not really talking about that. My definition of bias is really an aggregate. It's an aggregate of our learned experiences, spoken, everything that we've actually experienced ourselves, that actually creates something. It can be good, it can be bad. We can use it for whatever it is. But either way, this bias creates a problem for us, especially when we're trying to deal creativity. It almost is as if we're tunnel vision. When we say tunnel vision and tunnel thought, this is the reason why, because we have bias. Automatically, we're judging everything right away. It's our subconscious. It's our subconscious fault, and even on our conscious side. So again, the way we can get past all this, and we spoke about this a little bit earlier, if it's yourself, we have to remove the stupid barrier. We really have to fool our subconscious into not judging so quickly. Let's just get all the ideas. And the same thing actually applies in meetings, in corporate meetings. What we need to do is we need to be able to not judge. I can't be there every time to throw the penalty flag on an illegal motion if people are judging stuff right away, so we have to do it ourselves. Whether it's through an unbiased moderator or it's just a simple thing, we are not going to judge any ideas until all of them are in. If we go ahead and do that, and maybe possibly using something different than our brainstorming model, let's say brainwriting. And brainwriting is the same thing as brainstorming, but instead of actually vocally offering the idea, everybody just writes the ideas. That way you don't even have the potential of judgment. Everyone's just writing down ideas, that's all going to be gathered up later on, and then you worry about it. If you do that, whether it's by yourself or whether it's actually in a meeting, what you've done is you've maximized engagement. And if people are engaged, they're more likely to be creative. The best thing about creativity is you can run your own personal experiments. One of my favorite personal experiments is I like to ask friends, acquaintances, just even strangers on the street, if you could have a personal theme song. You're about ready to walk into a party, and before you walk in, music starts playing and everybody knows it's about you that's walking in. It's almost like, if you think about it, those relievers in major leagues, right before a reliever is called, boom, the call to the pen, whatever music's playing, you can almost guess which pitcher that is. Now, that's a little bit artificial. You almost think of the movies in Major League with Ricky Vaughn, Charlie Sheen's character, right before he walks in, boom, Wild Thing starts playing. Everybody knows that. You instantly can go ahead and recognize that. But what's your personal theme song? If I'm going to go ahead and ask you for your personal theme song, it's kind of hard to answer that right away. You almost have to do 3 different discoveries. The first one is a self-discovery. What's your personality? What is it that makes you, you? That's important, and it's also kind of hard to actually go ahead and do. The other thing that we need to do is how do we project ourselves out to others? We might have our own self-perception, but if others see us a little bit differently, it's going to be hard to actually come up with something that everyone's going to be able to recognize. It's not going to need any further explanation. It's not going to need any interpretation. It will be painfully and quickly obvious when that music starts playing, they're talking about you. So once you get past that part, then finally you actually have to have a musical discovery. Okay, so now you've got your personality. You're pretty sure everybody perceives you in the same way, but what song best goes ahead and sums that up? So you actually have your 3 different discoveries that have to actually happen. And the combination of those would end up being your personal theme song. And this is important. Self-discovery is important for not only discovery and exploration, but even in the creative process. After all, who knows us better than us? For example, let's use myself for instance. I personally think my personal theme song is obvious. I've never had anybody say that that isn't me. So what exactly is that? I've always had a penchant. I've had chronic lead-footitis. For those of you who know, that means pedal to the metal. I like to speed. Certainly, I used to do it a lot more and with a lot higher tolerances than I do now, but there was absolutely no question that that was me. I would be invited to people's houses. They'd love to hear the same stories over and over again, especially the ones where I got pulled over and had to try to talk my way out of the ticket. Some of those were the best, and actually some of the best stories were the ones where I finally actually got the ticket. But either way, there's no question that speeding was part of my personality. So what song did I pick? Well, it's really only one obvious choice. Sammy Hagar's I Can't Drive 55. No question. If that song were playing before I'd walk in, everyone would know, hey, Mo's about to come in here. So we all can do that ourselves. But the important thing is, when we're doing the self-discovery, it's not who we want to be or who we wish to be. It's who we are right now. So technically that can change over time, although some people would argue your base personality never actually changes. But if we just take that for what it is for right now, what is our personality right now? How do we project that out? What song best matches? We've got that. We've got a self-discovery, and you've also got a fun party game and a social experiment. It's very, very interesting to see these answers. Not only do you learn something about yourself, but me as the asker, I learned something too. The creative or the innovative process actually requires two other steps as well. One of them is prudent risk-taking, and the other one is testing assumptions. Now, we've already done that with the brick. We actually did test assumptions. We thought the brick was just a brick. It's only used for building things, but it actually can be used for just about anything you really want it to be. We assumed that the brick was only used for building. Of course, we all know that assume is actually a compound word. We don't need to actually spell it out. I think we all know what that stands for. But let's go back to taking prudent risks. You know, what exactly is a prudent risk? Well, certainly every activity that we do, there's a certain risk involved. Me walking up here on stage, I can suddenly trip, fall flat on my face. That'd be pretty funny, except to me maybe. But either way, there's a risk. I could just trip right now. So what it really comes down to is probability versus possibility. You have to actually think of it that way, because otherwise, if we try to stop and quantify each risk and then plan a mitigation strategy, a way that we're going to get around it, we never do anything. We never go anywhere. It's just way too risky. So obviously, we have to have a system for actually evaluating prudent risk and a non-prudent risk. So let's say we're taking a hot shower. Well, there's certainly risk in taking a hot shower. You can slip and fall in the bathtub. You can burn yourself on the hot water. But for some reason, we don't really think of that as a particularly risky adventure. So for us, that would actually be a prudent risk. A non-prudent risk would be while you're in the shower, you decide, hey, I'm going to check out that latest dance move and start moving around on the floor. Or better yet, I'm going to start doing acrobatics. I bet you I could take a shower standing on my head. All right, well, that might not exactly be a prudent risk. That might be a little bit harder to actually go ahead and rationalize. It's really the same thing with the creative and the innovative process. We need to actually be able to take the prudent risk of creating, of innovating, of thinking beyond what actually has already been thought of. In some ways, it really is reflective of change management itself. I mean, after all, if you're creating something, you're changing something. If you're changing a reality of some sort. And there are two kinds of changes. One change is adaptive change. An adaptive change might be a tweak or a minor change. For instance, if we're talking about a wheel, and I wanted to go ahead and improve the radial or the tread on that wheel, okay, well, that's an adaptive change. You've made a change. There's a lot lower risk involved with that, a lot lower overall reward, but you have made a change. The other change, of course, is the innovative or the radical change. And that's really a game changer. We are really reinventing the wheel. This is something that is brand new. And we actually need both of those in the creative and the innovative process. We really need to ask ourselves, what's wrong with being a radical? Or better yet, as I like to say, why the hell not? Why wouldn't we want to go ahead and do that? Yeah, there's a little bit more risk, the risk of failure, but at the same point in time, nothing worth inventing actually got invented without somebody putting themselves out there, actually taking a risk. It comes the same thing when it comes to creative process. We actually have to put ourselves out there a little bit. Now, a corporation needs both. You need adaptive changers and you need radical changers. You need both. They have to work in concert. There's a necessity and a demand for both of them. So if we're doing both, we are taking prudent risks and we're also being able to do a lot more by itself. Both are necessary, both are in demand, both should be constantly employed. All right, this is our little audience participation piece, even more than we've already done before. For those of you that are familiar with Pat Travers, this will be a lot of fun. For those of you who aren't, it'll still be lots of fun. Anyways, what we're going to do here is when I say the words boom, boom, you guys all say out go the lights. All right, let's try it. Boom, boom.
Out goes the lights!
No, louder. I can't hear you. Boom, boom.
Out goes the lights!
There you go. Pat Travers has got nothing on us. Anyways, let's talk about this. That sounds a lot of fun. We're having a lot of fun, but what does this really have to do with creativity? What do outgo the lights have to do with much of anything, really? Let's think about this for a second. Why is it that it certainly seems to us that our best ideas come maybe in the dark, in the shower, while we're perhaps driving around late at night, or we're in some sort of half sleep, half semi-conscious mode, and then suddenly we realize, oh my gosh, we've got an idea, and well, hey, wasn't that a great idea? What's actually really happening over here? Now, I can give a highly technical answer to that I'm sure would make all the doctors in the audience here pretty proud. I'd rather not go ahead and do that. We'll leave that for the doctors. But what I am going to say is what's really happening is we're lulling our conscious state. We're kind of putting it in a very sedate, very nice and easy, very quiet, very relaxed mode. It's very similar to if, let's say, you're driving on a country road at night while it's snowing. And the snow comes in at you and the headlights, and it's almost like an outer space type effect. You're almost traveling along at warp speed or whatever it is, and all those lights are just kind of coming at you while you're just driving. And it's very relaxing. It's very, it has a sedative effect. And what we've done is we've really lulled our conscious into a more of a lulled state. The same thing really happens while, it's dark. It is quiet. It is a little more relaxing. At least it seems that way. It would almost be as if I said, boom, boom.
Out goes the lights!
Oh, come on, guys. You could do better than that. Boom, boom.
Out goes the lights!
There you go. Oh, I don't know. How did I get this crowd? Anyways, that's really what we're trying to go ahead and do. We're trying to go ahead and find a way to get to our optimal creative sense. Now, yeah, sure, we've got brainstorming sessions and we're trying to go ahead and do that, but our active sense is really in full motion. So we've got our subconscious filter, that's still working right now, even though we say to ourselves, oh, okay, we're going to get rid of this stupid barrier, at least for this brainstorming session, but it's still running at full speed. What we really need to do is to get to a more sedate phase, where we've kind of fooled the subconscious. And when we fool the subconscious, then we suddenly are letting in a lot more. That filter isn't exactly working at full speed because you're in a much more relaxed state. The important thing is when you're at that relaxed state, you actually have to have two different things. Number one, always important, very, very important. Keep an idea journal, notepad. This isn't an original idea, but have one handy. If you're in the shower, believe it or not, there's a product. I'm not going to endorse a specific product, but I use it. I got to tell you something. You think of an idea in the shower, you can write it down. It's still there. But keep a notepad handy. You want to be able to capture that. And the second thing is, boom, boom.
Out goes the lights!
Put yourself in the best creative position that you could actually have to think of those ideas. One of the things that I really enjoy, and I didn't really have that opportunity, I wasn't quite as attuned to it, is actually watching my kids when they were at a great age, at a toddler age, and really being attuned to what was really going on. And thankfully, I have an almost 22-month-old, and now I'm really attuned to the whole creative and the innovative process, and it's just fantastic to go ahead and watch. The world is wide open for her. Big, beautiful world. She's got absolutely no perception of risk or danger or anything else like that. Full speed ahead, caution to the wind, everything is out there open. She's got no preconceptions, none of everything. It's just wonderful. I mean, to her, there really is no limit at all. But then we get older. And suddenly we perceive risk a whole lot differently. We're suddenly burdened with responsibilities. We stop being the explorer. We stop most of our discoveries. Matter of fact, discovery is just a cable channel. Or better yet, a rummage in the pantry to see kind of what's in there, and hopefully nothing too old anyways. But anyways, we really need to go ahead and get back and put our explorer's hat back on. We need to be able to go ahead and discover again. After all, isn't that what creativity and innovation is really about? It's about discovery. So how do we exactly get back to that? And I'm frequently asked that question all the time, and I really have two responses for it. My first response when I'm asked how can we be more creative is get lost. Get lost. That seems kind of rude or impatient perhaps. Well, here's what I really mean by get lost. Turn off your GPS in your car and head off in any direction you'd like. It doesn't make a difference what direction it is. Just go. Chances are you'll discover things you didn't know before. Hey, I never noticed that store over there. Or, hey, take a look at over that. What's in that field? What's over there? Now, this really is a very low risk of actually getting lost. You can always turn the GPS back on, navigate your way back home. You're not truly lost. I think to a trip I took 20 years ago, and I really wished I could actually go ahead and do this again. In some ways I have a little bit. But 20 years ago, me and a buddy, we decided we were going to head only in a north or west direction on a non-interstate. No maps. We were not allowed to take a look at any map. This is pre-GPS days, of course. And we would just go, and whatever we saw is whatever we saw. And I personally thought it was one of the best trips I've ever taken in my life. We ran into little towns that had a claim to fame. One of them in Iowa, actually, I wish I could remember the name of it, but it was, "Welcome to this town, home of 638 friendly people and one old grump." That's what the sign said. It was pretty funny. We took a picture of it. In the process, we ended up in Mount Rushmore. This is after Thanksgiving. We had the park to ourselves. This isn't a tourist trap anymore. This is wide open. Wild buffalo roaming around. We had Devil's Tower outsetting. We ended up in Miles City, Montana, 1,400 miles away from Chicago, 3 days later. Yeah, we were cruising a little bit, but boy, what did we see? What were you going to see if you actually go ahead and get lost? The other thing that I usually would advise people, someone asks, how do we be more creative? How do I put the explorer's hat back on? You know what I say? Go take a hike. Boy, again, I'm being rude, aren't I? Well, not really. Actually, take a hike. Go on a walk someplace. Go in a different direction. It could be rural. It could be urban. It really doesn't make any difference. You're going to walk, even walking around your neighborhood. Chances are you're going to see something you didn't really see or notice before. If you actually stop and wonder about it, fantastic. You've just discovered again. Low risk, doesn't take a whole lot of time. Corona says find your own beach. Sound of Music says climb every mountain. But I say make your own trail. So again, if we want to be creative, we want to be innovative, we want to be able to explore and discover again, what are we going to do? We're going to get lost and go take a hike. We've all heard this. Let's think outside the box. Ugh, I hate that. I cringe. I hear let's think outside the box. Sky is the limit. Ugh, same reason. I just don't like that. Yeah, they're overused. It's cliche. Almost doesn't mean anything. It's so overused. It's kind of like the word innovative. Innovative dry cleaners. Okay, what's so innovative about what you're doing? I don't know. It just sounds good. We have a problem here with this. And the problem isn't that it's overused. The problem is we're trying to be creative here. We're trying to brainstorm. I guess that's why we're saying we need to think outside the box. Why are we using language that's limiting? Box implies a boundary and implies a parameter. Why are we, when we're trying to do this, automatically self-imposing a boundary? We really should have no boxes, no boundaries, no parameters, no limits. Forget the box altogether. The question is it's really about mindset. And our mindset needs to change. We always think in the terms of, well, we need to have some sort of reference. Well, no, we don't when it comes to idea generation. we really don't have to have that. It's more than just semantics. It really does come down to how is it that we're going ahead and going to think. What are we really going to do that's going to be different? You think word usage doesn't really make a difference when it comes to creativity? Well, I'll give you two words. The English language is a funny language, and sometimes I wonder how anybody ever learns it as a second language. But consider these two words, tenacious and stubborn. They mean the same thing. They should be able to be interchangeable and pretty much all the time, but yet they're not. Tenacity is a virtue. Stubbornness is not. Aren't people so tenacious? The fact of the matter is we need to change our mindset, because if we change our mindset, the sky is not the limit. It's only at the beginning. Speaking about mindset, I've observed many different corporate meetings, all different levels, from team brainstorming session to grand strategy meetings to board meetings to you name it. And this almost always will happen. Someone is going to go ahead, offer up an idea to address a particular issue or a problem. Almost immediately, oh, we've tried it, we failed before, that won't work, no budget, no time, no people, no approval, no willpower. We just can't go ahead and do it. The problem with all of that is what we've done, besides stifling any creativity, and what we've talked about before, how likely is it that anybody else is going to go ahead and offer a solution, is we've actually gone ahead and put ourselves in a negative frame of mind. This negative frame of mind makes it very, very difficult, if not impossible, to really be creative. All of our energy, all of our conscious energy is now sucked into this negativity. It's a very difficult process to actually break out of. But at the same point in time, it's more than just negativity itself. Sometimes corporate communications by itself can be not only a barrier, but can enforce negativity. I don't know who actually sent this to me, but this is a particular example of what I'm talking about. I certainly wouldn't be able to memorize this because, as you'll soon see, this doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. This is an actual memo. We can undertake with key stakeholders to get some traction with an innovative paradigm shift to contextual mindfulness going forward. At the end of the day, it should be noted that if we can get some alignment, we will have a basis for go-forward renewal within the Dynamic Think Space 2.0. With that framework as the key core strategy painting the new direction, perhaps we could have discussions as a roundtable, an armchair, or if my time horizon allows, a bilat. That speaks to our ability to demonstrate within a culture of engagement that we have clearly addressed our transformational agenda and met with significant fundamental progress. Boy, that's a mouthful. What have we actually said? Now, you got this memo, and now what do you do with all this? Does this give you that get up and go, I want to go ahead and do this, I've just read this, I'm charged, I'm ready to go? No, more likely, that's kind of how you feel. You're certainly not charged up, you're certainly not ready to go. The best thing about that is, if there is a best thing, is all of that mumbo jumbo, all of that corporate doublespeak can actually be summed up in 3 words. Just 3 words. What are those 3 words? Well, if I'm channeling my inner Joan Rivers, can we talk? That was it. 3 words. That whole message. Which one is more likely to get an engaged response? That or can we talk? Why the hell not? Why couldn't we go ahead and talk? And while we're on that subject, why can't we go ahead and have a more positive spin? When someone offers an idea, instead of just immediately jumping on why it won't work, maybe we could go ahead and think of how it could work. Why the hell not? Why couldn't we go ahead and do that? Why shouldn't we go ahead and do that? That's a rhetorical question. We're not trying to find answers. Remember, we're trying to generate ideas. So again, when it comes to generating ideas, being more innovative, being creative, having that positive mindset, keep asking yourself, why the hell not? Thank you very much for having me. Enjoy the rest of your dinner.